Hello, my name is Patricia Miranda, and this is my PowerPoint presentation on Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences was developed in 1983 by Dr. Howard Gardner, professor of education at Harvard University. It suggests that the traditional notion of intelligence based on IQ testing is far too limited. Instead, Dr. Gardner proposes 8 different intelligences to account for a broader range of human potential in children and adults. These intelligences are linguistic, word smart, logical, mathematical intelligence, number reasoning smart, spatial intelligence, picture smart, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, body smart, musical intelligence, music smart, interpersonal intelligence, people smart, intrapersonal intelligence, self smart, and naturalist intelligence, nature smart. One of the most remarkable features of the theory of multiple intelligences is how it provides 8 different potential pathways to learning. If a teacher is having difficulty reaching a student in the more traditional linguistic or logical ways of instruction, the theory of multiple intelligences suggests several other ways in which the material might be presented to facilitate effective learning. A little more about the man behind this theory. Howard Gardner was the son of Jewish refugees from Nazi Germany. He was a studious child who loved to read, and he developed into a gifted pianist. He retained a lifelong passion for music and contributed that to his conception of human cognitive capacity. Gardner spent a lot of time telling people how much influence music had on these types of intelligences. Gardner undertook most of his formal training and graduate work at Harvard University, where he earned his bachelor's degree in social relations in 1965 and a doctoral degree in developmental psychology in 1971. The theory of multiple intelligences affected many school improvement efforts in the United States. Gardner and others promoted efforts to understand diverse student capacities and emphasized the need for personal educational environments, improved interdisciplinary curricular programs, and the use of performance-based assessments, basically paving the way for education as we have it today. Verbal intelligence includes the master of language. People with verbal intelligence tend to think in words that have highly developed auditory skills. It fields them into teaching, journalism, writing, law, and translation careers. Language enables them to be better at memorizing information. Verbal students are often great storytellers. There is an ability to analyze language and to create a better understanding of what people mean when using words. So the teaching strategies for these types of learners would include teachers using language that the student can relate to and fully comprehend. The language can be used as a tool and a bridge of sorts between the material and the learner. Another strategy would be having children write, read, and give oral reports about something from their lives or the topic of study develops their linguistic intelligence. So creating real-world emphasis on what they are learning. Moving on to the next intelligence, we are going to look at logical mathematical intelligence, which consists of the ability to detect patterns, reasons deductively, and think logically. These types of learners explore the intelligence by ordering and reordering objects. So often we can see that in very young students. They are able to do math in their heads without using manipulatives. They can do calculations very quickly, and these are all things that usually show up very early in their life. The fields that this intelligence leads its learners into are mathematicians and scientists, and these people are less concerned with the abstract, which differs from some of the other intelligences we will be looking at. Teaching strategies for this intelligence are closely related to technology, the use of computer programming and games to teach the material do really well with these types of learners. Graphs, charts, diagrams, problem recognition, different activities related to technology are all things that help stimulate these types of learners. The visual spatial learner gives a person the ability to manipulate and create mental images in order to solve problems. Spatial thinkers perceive the visual world accurately to perform transformations and modifications upon one's initial perceptions, and to be able to recreate aspects of one's initial perceptions even in the absence of relevant physical stimuli. So in simpler words, they're able to think in 3D. They can see things in a different way than most people can. An individual can recognize an object from different angles, imagine movement among parts of a configuration, and think about spatial relations in which the body orientation of the observer is an essential part of the problem, is said to have spatial intelligence. So being able to not only see things that other people can see, but also to be able to recognize parts and how they fit into a system. And this is a topic that we explore a lot of, especially in the STEM classroom, how parts fit into a larger system or how a system fit into other systems. So that's something that would come into play for this intelligence. Teaching strategies for this intelligence would be best taught using pictures or photographs. Often a good assessment is to have them draw their ideas, to create a blueprint, sketches with labels. The students also benefit from using film, overhead diagrams, posters, anything that they can connect to and visually represent their understanding. Moving on to bodily kinesthetic, intelligence entails the ability to understand the world through the body. These people can use their body in a very expressive skill way for a distinct purpose. These characteristics go together with their ability to manipulate objects and to carry out delicate movements using precise control. Performers are able to capture the intended emotion and express them through different mediums. So this also relates back to Gardner's work in musical intelligence, which we will see as we go along. These intelligence sorts of learners use bodily means to aid memory, remembers how one's body felt as it moved through an unfamiliar building in order to remember how to get to a specific room. They also are able to focus on bodily information over anything else. So how something feels, or how the music made them feel, or how words work for seeing the spatial information. As I was doing research on this intelligence, it also triggered me to think about STEM, because a lot of the strategies for teaching this intelligence include hands-on multisensory activities, being able to learn new tools and how they operate, how they can use them for different tasks, being able to put together models, and to understand how some parts fit into a system or how a system fits into larger parts, can all be developed through bodily kinesthetic. Our next one is musical intelligence. Musical intelligence is something that Gardner always referred back to as the surprising variety of neural representations of musical ability found in human beings. This variety is expressed in music's connection to all other intelligences, which is a hallmark of its distinctiveness and autonomy as an intelligence. So in other words, he was trying to say that you can find all the other intelligences within musical intelligence. And one of the articles that I had read for the article critique really pointed out how each intelligence was being developed through musical intelligence. And it was interesting to see how music and the arts are really downplayed in school, but they're a great pathway to develop all these other types of intelligences. As I was reading the article, they gave descriptions of how musical helps adapt, and how the students are able to refine their skills in the other intelligences, but the ones that stuck out to me were interpersonal. So within the interpersonal space, the artists themselves must be able to feel the music and have a level of empathy Without these elements, the artist is unable to evoke any emotions with their audience. So that's one of the other intelligences. Another one is that due to the smaller scale of the studio setting, the students work very closely with each other and the professor. This intimate environment makes for development of integration skills as well as their music skills. On the interpersonal level, the artist is also training themselves. For example, a singer is learning about their voice, what it can do, what their limits are, and how they can develop themselves. They are finding their own voice. For the teaching strategies in this intelligence, it's clear that incorporating music, whether it's listening to music or creating music into the lessons, is a big part of it. And allowing the students to create and use music as an answer to the problems that they're solving within the projects is really helpful for students who want to develop the musical intelligence, or students who already favor it. The interpersonal intelligence. The interpersonal intelligence is the ability to understand and interact effectively with others. So being in situations where the students have to work together, where they depend on each other in order to solve problems, that's one that would be working on interpersonal skills. When I think about the science classroom, we are constantly working cooperatively in order to facilitate this. I am always giving the individuals a role for themselves, but ultimately each of them plays a role in creating the final product, so they're able to all develop something that is useful to the group. And this sort of collaborative problem solving is something that helps facilitate this intelligence, but it's also about being able to give and receive information, so that way they're able to be student-centered opposed to focusing on myself. This is directly opposed to intrapersonal, which is the ability to understand themselves and to think about their own strengths and weaknesses. Many individuals that have this are extremely aware of their own skills, and they are able to understand their weaknesses and strengths, but a big part of this is being able to overcome that if any of those aspects are negative. So being able to help promote more collaborative work is great, but at the same time giving the child an option to work independently, to set goals for themselves, and be able to work silo is really important to help them move along. I have students in my own classroom that they are interpersonal learners, and they cannot sit with a group. They wouldn't accomplish any of the work. But once they've set a goal for themselves, and if they're given the space to do it, they're able to meet that goal, and then they can return back to a whole group. So being able to recognize this is important. Lastly, we have the naturalist intelligence, and the naturalist is the ability to observe patterns in nature and understand natural and human-made systems. So you heard me mention before systems in a few of the other intelligences, and the naturalist is able to look at the entire world as a system, and they're able to see all the living things and non-living things within it as parts of it. So the naturalist is big on observation and being able to record what they see. So if you have naturalist learners, especially like in a science classroom like me, the science journal's a huge part of it, because the observation and data recording is very important to these types of learners. Being able to explore is a huge one, and when we have naturalist learners, we have to be able to take trips and go outdoors and just expose them to a lot more than just what's in the classroom. And finally, all these intelligences together are important because they all provide different pathways for students to learn. So being able to identify where the students' strengths are, depending on what intelligences they may favor or not favor, is an important aspect of being the educator, because it is our job to harness their interest in these areas and to develop their skills.